Hi guys, so in today's video we are having a little bit of a play around with the P Louise brand. So I have a go with the eyeshadow palettes, which I am a big fan of. Spoiler. This is actually my first time playing with them and yeah, love them. I have a play with the paints, the bases, the coloured bases. I even have a little bit of a concealer hack for you. If you could like and subscribe, that would do me a huge favour. And please don't forget to go see my Instagram and my TikTok for more makeup content. Instagram always have that a little bit of a sneak peek before everything goes up on YouTube, so don't miss out. And without further ado, we will get into the video. Hi, so as you can see, prepped one night, of course, with the P Louise base. How fitting for this video. And today I'm actually going to be using the P Louise Stack 'em Up palettes. So I've got the purple one and the blue one. So first off, to go above the crease, I'm going to go in with the blue palette. And I went in with this shade here, this really dark one, which is Level Up. And again, very fitting for this video, I actually went in with the P Louise 143 eyeshadow brush, just dipping in to the palette, tapping off, just stamping out where I want that colour. So I'm just going in with this first to just stamp on that initial shape. And as you can see, this eyeshadow is like ridiculously pigmented. There is a little bit of kickback in the pan, like when I dip my brush in, but that does not bother me. And because I like my cut crease to actually go above the fold in my natural eye, like when I look straight ahead, the fold, like I already have a fold in my eye, because I do have slightly hooded eyes, so I always do my deepest, darkest shade just slightly higher. Although I have gone quite high on this one just because I wanted it to be really dramatic. So there we have it all patted on. I'm just going to take my brush, I'm going to take my trusty makeup flannel, just wipe that off, getting all the excess eyeshadow off of it, and I'm just going to go around those edges. And no more tapping now. I'm going in tiny little circular motions, as you can see, feather-light touch, and I'm just getting rid of that really harsh edge and getting that nice blend going. And that's just so when I go to put my next shade down, everything's nice and seamless. So as you can see, all blended out. Next up, I'm going in with this blue here, which is the shade Talk is Cheap. And again, a P Louise brush. These blending brushes are fab. If you haven't seen my favourite eye brushes video, then obviously you won't know, but these are amazing and they always will be. So this is the 124 blending brush, and I'm just, again, going in with that shade and 50% on and 50% off. So this edge here where I have blended out that first deepest darkest blue, that is going straight on top of there. So it's 50% on that first shadow and 50% on the actual bare skin of my lid. And that is just ensuring that I get that really lovely colour payoff, lovely blend. So again, this first initial layout of this colour, just patting it straight on. And now that that is on, brush, makeup flannel, you know the drill. And I'm just going out and buffing those edges again. So just a really light touch and going in and blending. So now that second colour is again all blended out, I'm going to go in with this sort of like greeny bluey shade here, slightly pastel-y, the shade Money Moves, and going in with a slightly bigger fluffy brush, and that is going straight on that blended edge, 50% on that blended edge and 50% on my skin. And as you can see, like, this is a pastel shade, but the pigment is insane. Sometimes pastel shades can be like just a little bit chalky, not this. And then for this outer corner here, I've just brushed off that pigment, and all I'm going to do is pat again around those edges. Now the first initial lay down of colour is on, I'm going to go back in and re-intensify everything. So I'm going to go in with that medium blue shade and just re-intensify that, lay that colour back down to make sure that it doesn't get lost. And then now, finally, I'm going to go back in with the darkest blue and just begin to re-intensify that. And as you can see, these colours blend together like so well. I feel like the shades were picked to be used together. The shades just blend so easily. Like, every shade is in here for a reason. And then it's just a case of looking and making sure that everything is the right height. Just from a little bit of a closer look, I can see that I need a little bit more of that middle blue shade. Just slightly higher, because it meets my brow bone here. But that should do it. So then I'm going to go in with the P Louise coloured base in the shade Vivid Violet, and all I'm going to do is cut my crease. So just having some on the back of my hand, going in with the 7072 P Louise brush again, and this is just a really fine cut crease brush. So you can swipe your product onto the brush and it just makes a really sharp edge. And then I'm just going to cut to where the height needs to be to match my other eye. And as you can see, I have cut that crease in the middle. So where it's cut is actually more of like a straight line down instead of like the usual sort of Wi-Fi sort of cut creases that you see. So like when they take it on an angle, it just doesn't look right on my eye. Like, I used to do them, I used to cut them like that, and I just can't anymore because it just doesn't look right on my particular eye shape. So I have started cutting them like this, making sure that the edges are all tapped out with my finger, just so then that base is nice and thin at the edge. That's just to make sure that when I go in with any sort of shadow the consistency of that base is thinnest at the edges, so it'll make for a really, really nice transition. And those coloured bases are just so, so good for cutting the crease and things like that, because you've already got that like colour payoff to begin with. So it just makes it easier for when you go in with your coloured eyeshadows then to go over your cut crease. Hell of a lot easier. So I'm moving on to the purple palette now, and I'm just going to give that brush that I used for the darkest, deepest blue, I'm going to give that a quick swipe on my flannel, and I'm going to go in with the darkest shade in the palette, which is this purple here, which is the shade Ambition. So just going in there and on that inner corner and on that outer corner, just putting that colour down to make sure that we've got some depth there on those corners. And when I'm going in with this colour, I'm not going in again with the Wi-Fi angles, I'm going straight down my lid. So next up, I'm going in with this shade here, which is the shade Empire. Taking that on my brush, and that is going right at the side of that deep purple colour that we've just put down. And taking that almost to the centre of my eye. So that shade is down, and then finally taking the shade Priceless, which is this really light lilac, and that is going all the way down the centre of my lid. Now this is probably the chalkiest sort of shadow that I used, but I don't mean it in like a bad way, I just mean it in the fact that it gives off this like gorgeous, gorgeous colour. It's almost like a blurring sort of colour. Like there's no harshness to it, it's just so smoky. So it's not hard to use or anything like that when I say chalky. I mean it in like the best possible way. It is by no means anything bad about the shadow. So that colour's on, and then it's just a case of going back and making sure that everything is blended nicely on that lid. And then to also really make sure that that cut crease is looking deep and dark, nice and contrasted, I'm actually going to go in with like just a tiny liner brush, that darkest blue shade from the blue palette, and I'm actually just going to make sure that that line is really, really dark. Just a little bit of a clean-up job. And then finally, I'm going to go in with Get Up and Grind, which is this shimmer here. It's almost like a topper, and I'm just going to take that on my finger and pat it right down that middle. And then with my brush, I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and dispersed on the edges. Just so it's not like a straight up line down my eye. And there we have it for the eyes for now. Clean up a little bit underneath, whiz off, and I'll be back with the rest of the products. So another P Louise products that I really love are the P Louise paints. So the coloured bases and the bases are tacky, they stay wet, they need to be set. The paints, however, dry down, so they have that really sort of indestructible formula. Once these have been on your skin and they're set, they do not budge. So these as like concealers for spot concealing, amazing. So all I do is just take a little bit on my brush, go over any sort of blemish. Really good for covering redness, so like some sort of redness on my nose. And my scarring. And I've got a little bit of tan on at the moment, so that's why this colour's just a smidge too light. But it'll be fine. Then I just take my foundation brush and pat it in. And that'll just dry down matte. It'll stay matte. You won't have any sort of like separation coming through for your oils, anything like that. Because once those paints are down, they are there to stay. So if you have any sort of like blemish, things like that, that produce oil, that are a little bit, they tend to disturb your concealer and things like that, the paints are fab. So the next product that is up is something that you've probably heard me all bang on about before. It is the P Louise Cosmetic Bases, but the blush shades. So here I have Winter Rose, so I'm just going to bob some on the back of my hand. Only a tiny little bit. Get my brush. Make sure it's all nice and coated but evenly. And yeah, just begin to tap on that colour. And again, because this is a P Louise base, it will stay. So if you've ever used like a liquid blush before that sort of like goes on fantastically but throughout the day sort of wears off or starts to move, things like that, you will not get that with this. And it also has this like gorgeous sort of glow. So you don't have to set it really, because if you do leave it like just as you've applied it, it will have this sort of like sheen to your skin that just really comes through in your makeup. And obviously these are really pigmented, like this right now is looking a bit much, so just make sure that you go back in with your powder for your under eyes and just make sure that everything is nice and blended. So the next thing that I'm going to go in with from P Louise is the Crisp Finish Cosmetic Paint in the shade Sexy Chili, which is like this greeny, bluey sort of shade. And again, it dries down matte. So this is absolutely fantastic for liners, for the waterline. Yeah, you knew what were coming. So this I'm just going to place right there in my waterline, like so. And then I'm just going to go in with that Talk is Cheap, which is the middle toned blue that we used, and that is going on that lash line. And then I'm going to blend that out with the Money Moves, which was that lightest blue shade, which is just going there. So the lower lash line is now done, and I'm just going to take some of that Get Up and Grind, which was the shimmer from that blue palette, and that is going right on the inner corner, just with my finger, to just really open up that eye. So for lips, I'm going in with the P Louise lip liner in the shade Standards, which is this like dark brown. I'm just gonna line my lips. And these are super, super creamy. And then I'm going in with the shade Takeoff in the lipstick. And I am just going to apologise now that yes, that was a dog having a little bit of a gag. So I'm just going to throw some lashes on and then I will be back to show you the finished look. So guys, here we have the finished look. I just feel like this is one of those very, very like bougie, super glam and colourful, like this is a very, very me sort of look. Obviously, you know, it's not quite your pop down to Aldi sort of look, but I just do love this sort of makeup where you can just have a play, have a bit of an experiment and go all out. The products I really, really loved, as I knew that I would. They are just super, super high quality. They never let me down and it's just one of those scrummy brands that you can always have fun with. So I really, really hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so, so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye!